Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by, and really glad to have this young lady on. Her name is Nina May. She is the founder, the writer, director, producer, and founder of Renaissance Women Productions. Really appreciate meeting you, Nina. How are you?
Oh, great. Just, well, considering everything's happened in Afghanistan, I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, we're all watching that.
Disaster.
Yeah, we're all watching it very closely. It is a disaster, and it was a disaster that could have been averted. And we can get into that later on in the interview if you'd like. But I do want to get into who you are and what you do. I want people to go and check you out. The name of the website is RenaissanceWomenProductions.com. And there's a movie that you put out 15 years ago that seems to be unbelievably relevant today called Emancipation, Revelation, and Revolution. And you're just a truth teller. We have a problem, Nina, in this country today, as you know, that we're not telling the truth anymore. We're revising history. We're making it look like the bad guys were the good guys and the good guys were the bad guys. That's really the basis of what we're talking about, right?
Oh, exactly. And it actually didn't just start. And that's one of the reasons I did this 15 years ago. As a conservative Republican, I was tired of the Democrats getting away with calling me a racist. I'm going, don't you even know what your history is? You know, the Republican Party was founded as an abolitionist party back in 1854. That was it. They had 9 planks on their first platform. 6 dealt with equal rights, emancipation, civil rights. And who fought it? Who started a war? Who divided the nation over this? The Democrats.
Yeah.
They didn't want to go over their slaves. And they still have the same mentality 160 years later that we should be a slave to the government. I mean, that's what they are. They're socialist Marxists. Socialism and Marxism is slavery. And, you know, really want these young kids that are thinking socialism is something they can embrace and get behind. I want them to understand that it will destroy their lives. It will take their liberties and their freedoms from them.
It's Nina May, RenaissanceWomenProductions.com. Go there and check out the movie Emancipation, Revelation, Revolution. You've already blown people's minds already just by what you just said. But let's be real. Jim Crow, segregation, slavery, lynchings, the KKK, these are all mechanisms and thought processes put in place by progressive Democrats in this country. Today is the anniversary of women's suffrage in this country. 101 years ago, the 19th Amendment was finally ratified. Tennessee joined in, and then that was it. Women had the right to vote. Democrats fought that right for 65 years. It was 1854 was when Republicans tried to get this done. So it finally got done in 1919. Today's Democrat Party wants you and I to think, and wants my listeners and viewers to think, that they did this. They fought it.
Oh, exactly. And the sad thing about it is the Republicans don't know their own history. They don't know how to push back against this and say, whoa, time out. Do you understand who did this? It's the same thing with slavery. I mean, they were absolutely, again, they were so committed to slavery, they divided the nation. They were the ones that founded the KKK in 1866 as the terrorist arm of their party.
Right.
They were the ones that opposed the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. They instituted Jim Crow. A lot of people don't even understand what Jim Crow is. After the Civil War, every single black was Republican, period, end of story. First 23 black congressmen, first 23 black congressmen to be elected to Congress were all Republican.
All Republican, yeah.
First black senator was. A lot of people don't know that. They think that Carol Moseley Braun was the first black senator. No. Again, when you revise history to the point where none of it even makes sense, it's easy for them now to say, well, we're not going to start teaching history until around 1870. Everything before that, we don't really care about. Well, yeah, you don't care about it because it's really bad. It makes you look bad. But again, that's changed in 160 years. They're still the same party of oppression.
Well, of course they are. And the big lie that they tell is that there was some big switch. The Southern strategy and Nixon and the big switch, and every Republican became a Democrat, and every Democrat became a Republican. And my response to that always is, Nina, and again, it's Nina May. My response is, okay, where was the convention? When did that happen? Because nobody just decided one day they woke up and they flipped whether it was a D or an R. There had to be a big get-together and a big deal made, right? Tell me when that happened. And the bottom line is it happened to like 2 people. Strom Thurmond was one of them. And that's it. Everybody else stayed who they were. In fact, Biden today is still saying things like, you ain't black, and they're going to put y'all back in chains. Still saying things like racial jungle. This guy is a prototypical Democrat, isn't he?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And again, I lay the blame at the Republican Party's feet. They don't even know what their rich history on the issue of civil rights is. They have no idea. Talk about the Southern strategy for a second. The Southern strategy basically, and again, they've lied about this, it was, because I'm from the South and I was a product of the Southern strategy. because I was raised as a Democrat. You did not find a Republican in the South.
Right.
Republicans were called in lovers. You, you were, I mean, you were ostracized if you were a Republican in the
Right.
South. So I thought, oh, they're okay. I think I'm going to change party. I'm going to be a Republican. You know, so what happened with the Southern strategy, they were appealing to people like me who were horrified about what was happening with the racial divide in the country, with the way the very peaceful protesters, you know, sitting at the lunch counter or having their march across the bridge or kneeling and praying for God's, you know, mercy and everything.
Right.
All of it's done. And, you know, everyone has forgotten that, but that was the Southern strategy, to appeal to people like me who were raised as a Democrat, to say, do you really want to belong to the party of racism, the party
well
of
said.
slavery, the party?
So,
Well,
I'll say you're breaking up a little bit, but you sound great, and the radio is the larger audience, so we're going to be just fine. But I want to just say what you just said was said better than I've ever said it, and I've been very consistent on this. The Southern strategy was Richard Nixon trying to make Southern voters realize they could vote Republican and get away from the history of slavery, negativity, separation, segregation, and racism. As the South became more Republican, it became less racist. That just happens to be true.
Right.
And by the way, the president who employed the Southern strategy is the president that desegregated more schools than anybody else, and that's Richard Nixon. If he were so racist and trying to control blacks and keep racism alive, why would he ever integrate schools? He wouldn't, Nina. I mean, that's just bottom line, isn't it?
That's exactly right. In fact, that whole situation or that whole story is in ERR. And we quote Pat Buchanan. I don't know if y'all remember Pat Buchanan.
Yes.
But he was the author of the Southern strategy. You don't even begin to tell me that Pat Buchanan is a racist. For goodness sakes, he's a hardcore Republican,
Right.
Always has been, and he was the author of it. And I can't remember his quote exactly, but it is in the movie if you see it. But there are a lot of other things that happen, very small incremental things, and again, we cover them all in the movie, because I was trying to get to the bottom line of, when did it change? When did we go from being the party of civil rights and abolition and equal rights to being now open field of being called racist and white supremacist? Are you kidding me? To have Joe Biden, a white man, call me a white person, a white supremacist, I'm going, Joe, seriously, you really need to get a life here, bud.
Exactly right.
No.
I'm with you. I want to tell people to go and see ERR is how you're referring to it. It's Emancipation, Revelation, and Revolution. Her name is Nina May, and go to RenaissanceWomenProductions.com. Let me ask you very quickly, and we don't have a ton of time, but I'm very intrigued by what you're saying, and I want to have you on often. We have critical race theory, which is a made-up theory that white people invented race just so that we could now oppress and repress everybody. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life, yet it's being taught in schools. Our children are being taught that anti-racism is legitimately hating your own self if you happen to be white. White supremacy is a real thing. White privilege is a real thing. So they've indoctrinated our kids through academia, big media, big tech is a big one, big sports, big Hollywood. How do we combat that? Can we?
It's a huge irony that the people teaching this are the racists.
Yes.
Again, they're the ones that kept racism alive. They divided the country over this. They founded the KKK. I mean, we've seen all the horrible things they've done. The flag that they hate so much, that Confederate flag, that was their battle flag. I mean, all the statues they're tearing down of the Southern generals, those are their generals. I mean, that's what they're trying to do, basically, is erase their history, because it's coming back to bite them, and people are understanding that they truly were a racist, totalitarian, Marxist, socialist party then, and they are now, and they're just pushing their same bile on the world and on our kids.
Well, you and I agree, but how do we stop it? Because they do own all of those factions I just said, from Hollywood all the way to big tech. How do we stop it when they're in the hearts and minds of these young people? They're doing it in pre-K. Nina, you know this.
I know. I tell you what I've said, and we did it for 2 years and loved every minute of it. Tell everyone, take your kids out of public school and homeschool. Homeschool. I would rather have a child that is morally straight and ethical and has, a good set of absolutes, than to have that is, maybe he's not going to go off to Harvard, or who cares, than have some brilliant kid whose brain has just been burned out by this nonsense.
Right.
So people have to take back their children. Do not trust them to the state. The state will destroy your children. Trust me.
And that's exactly what it is. They're destroying them to make them modern day slaves. And I'll circle back to what you said in the very beginning. The Democrat Party has always been about power control and lavish lifestyles for the elite while they control the minions. People like you and me won't shut up. People like you and me go to work every day, tell the truth every day, tell unrevised history every day, and they need us to be quiet. I mean, for God's sakes, I'm in San Antonio, Texas. They're now saying that the Alamo was about slavery, which is BS. It's not true. They're telling us to forget the Alamo and not really, revel in what those brave men did as they faced their death in Santa Ana. This is, and again, it's revisionist history that hopefully we can turn back with movies like yours, Emancipation, Revolution. I fear, though, that kids take in what they take in, they're little sponges, and they believe it. That's why we need more conversations like this. That's the goal, yes?
Oh, no, that's exactly right. And we've done children's books and children's movies to try and educate them about the benefits of the free market system, for example, and the downfall, the pitfalls of socialism, which is Marxism, which is slavery. And I think that's a way to do it. We are in the county right next to Loudoun County, Virginia, which is ground zero for parents fighting back against critical.
And they're doing a good job too. They are.
Gosh, and talk about woke. These are really woke parents. I mean, they have awake to what is happening in their children's schools. And you're seeing black and whites come out and say, no, you're not doing this to my child. You're not doing this to my friend's child. You're not doing this to their relationship. Who are you people anyway? And the draconian measures that they're taking to shut these parents up is frightening. But again, it's exactly who these people are. It's who the Democrats are.
It is.
It's exactly who they are. Go back to what you were saying about the few that are going to be the elitists who can control everyone. W.E.B. Du Bois, and we mentioned this in our movie, had this belief, and he was a communist. He had this belief about something called the talented tenth. So basically, only a tenth of the population was smart enough and worthy enough to rule over the other 90% of idiots.
Wow.
And that's exactly what the Democrat Party believes. They believe there's 10% of them are more brilliant than the rest of the 90%, and they have a right, an obligation to control our lives because we're too stupid to know what's going on.
I'm with you. I appreciate you coming on. It's Nina May. Make sure you go and check out her website. It is Renaissance Women Productions. And check out this movie. It is Emancipation, Revolution. I love your message. I hope that we can continue to push that message. And I thank you so much for being a loud voice for what's right versus what's wrong. Thank you, Nina.
Bless you. Thanks.
We're back after this. Stay right here.